Hi everyone, this is Vanessa from Aura Nail Spa. I am going to show you all how to do a simple gel removal with an e-file and also an acrylic application. This is my first video, so please bear with me on the awkward silence in between me talking and explaining all the steps. So the first thing that I did was push back my cuticles, and now I'm just gonna take my e-file and debulk, just getting rid of all the product that was on my nails, that is on my nail. So for this video I'm just gonna do one hand. I'm working with my dominant hand right now. I would probably do another video working with my non-dominant hand. That video should be a lot longer. However, the bit that I'm using is a safety bit. I'm just gonna try to keep talking throughout the entire video so that you all don't get too bored. I just sped up the process a bit so that we're not here all day. My hands are going in all different directions because I was trying to stay in frame, which was really difficult. And I'm just gonna use my tip cutter and cut off all the extra tip there because I want to get rid of all the product on my nail to start a new fresh set. That one I could have just rip off. So when you file off all the product, it's gonna be really easy for that little tip to come off. So here I'm just gonna file away the excess gel. Again, I sped the video up because we don't want to be here all day. So I just took my hand file and I just sort of shaped my nails, just file off the extra tip that it had on there. And now I'm just gonna use a diamond bit, a cuticle bit, just to clean up around my cuticles a bit, because I find that when I use this bit, there's little to no lifting. It's really important to clean up around your cuticles because that's where all the lifting starts. And it also gives you a really clean look around the cuticles because you don't want to have your cuticle area looking all jagged. That kind of makes or breaks your set. My e-file is on a medium speed, like a medium to low speed, so it doesn't burn or it doesn't take off too much or dig into my natural nail. And here I just switch to my sanding band just to even out my nail and properly prep it. be sure to just, go in the corners as close as possible on the corners so that you can eliminate all the lifting. As you can see, my e-file is stopping every now and then because it's on a very low speed, because you don't want to scratch up your natural nail bed too much. You just want to dull it enough so that your tips and your product could stick and adhere properly to your nail. Just making sure that I got everything. So I just spray a little bit of alcohol just to scrub and make sure that all the product is off of my nail bed. There you can see it's clean. My fingertips are a little yellow because, food dye. It's just neatening up my cuticle area. I just use a cuticle nipper to just clip off all the excess cuticle there. And be sure to clear your nail of any contamination, any crease or just any contamination. So I use rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, to just spray a little, dust it off. So now I'm sizing my tips. These are C-curve tips in a square shape. So the first one fits perfectly, but I just wanted to check to make sure that the bigger size wouldn't fit even more perfect. So the bigger size was a little too big. As you can see, it kind of was hanging off on the side. So I went with the smaller size, and that just fit perfectly. So I went ahead and I sized the rest of the nails for my hand. And what I am doing here now, I like to rest my hands down, and when I'm placing my tips, I just look and make sure that each tip is parallel to the other, so that you get a nice straight application. And everything is stuck. So I'm just gonna cut my tips to the length that I want. just checking to make sure that the length is perfect. I'll actually like to have my thumbnails a bit shorter than the others. It just makes it easier for me to do anything. and now I'm gonna just blend my tip into my natural nail bed. And when you're doing this process, you wanna not really file your natural nail bed, you just wanna file the tip so that you get a smooth transition from tip to nail bed. Just bear in mind that the shape of your nail does not have to be perfect, it just needs to be basic, general. Because the perfection comes in when you're actually using your file and shaping. My e-file is on a low speed to do this as well. Whenever you're dealing with your natural nails, make sure that your e-file is on a very low speed. Alright, all blended in. Just gonna get rid of the dust. Just using my brush there to make sure that my cuticles are clean. So I sprayed a little alcohol on it, and I'm just gonna make sure that my nails are clean. I just forgot to file the sides just to make the shape a little better, but these tips are actually shaped really well, so that's why I forgot, you know, they don't really need to be shaped, but you know, I just have to be a perfectionist, so I shape them over. Here we go, cleansed and ready for primer. So I'm just applying primer only to the natural nail. Just one coat because you don't want to oversaturate the nail. Okay, so now I place my first bead just between the tip and my natural nail, and now just blending that bead in. I am going to get out of frame a lot. Please bear with me, the videos will get better, I promise. Okay, so now I just pat that bead into place, and I'm just swiping it down a bit just to smoothen it a bit. Now I'm gonna just place my second bead at the tip, and now just moving it around, just maneuvering the acrylic so that it covers the whole nail tip. Patting it into place, smoothing it out. I'm using the belly of my brush. It looks like I'm using the tip, but I'm not using the tip. If you use the tip of your nail, of your brush, what will happen, you'll just end up scraping all the acrylic backward. So you just want to use the belly of the brush to kind of place your acrylic properly. And here I'm placing my third bead closer to the cuticle. I'm not placing it exactly on the cuticle because then the acrylic will end up flooding the cuticle. So I just pat it here into place. I'm using a little closer to the cuticle, to the tip of the brush, sorry, where I could just kind of wedge it in between so that you can get that nice taper transition from cuticle to going straight down the nail. I'm gonna try to do this closer and probably in slow motion so that you all could see exactly the direction that the brush is going and the parts of the brush that I'm using. Also, I am using a size 7 or 8 brush. I can't remember what size brush I was using. But it's a small brush. It's easier for beginners to use because then you don't have a lot of acrylic on that brush there to have to control, because acrylic can get a bit out of control. So I'm just using not so much the tip of the brush, and I'm also, while I'm patting, I'm dragging it down just a smidge. Okay, just patting it into place there, and then I'm just smoothing it back out into the tip. It's all about blending. So I just blend your first bead into your second bead, and your second bead into your third, and your third into your second bead, and you're just blending them in so that you get a nice smooth application. Out of frame again. But that's okay, you got the idea. So I place my second bead at the tip here, and I kind of bring it towards the tip a little bit where didn't get acrylic, and notice that I'm constantly cleaning my brush. You need to always clean your brush in between powder and liquid. You just need to keep cleaning your brush. So I found in between that first and second bead there was a thin spot, so I ended up just putting a small bead there just to build up you know, just for strength. As you can see there, the application is still really thin, and it's all about creating the illusion that the nail is very thin. Here I am putting my cuticle bead, and notice when you press down on the acrylic, it sort of spreads and goes into different places. So as you continue doing nails, you will get to you get accustomed with how much pressure to use and how far the acrylic goes when you press down on it. Your liquid to powder ratio, that's a side view there. Nice apex. It's not very, humpy. It doesn't look bulky. It's nice and thin. So your liquid to powder ratio is really, really important so that you don't get a runny bead, because if you get a runny bead, the application can get really messy. So here I keep cleaning the sides so that the acrylic doesn't run off of the tip, and there I'm blending it into the nail tip. And before you blend it, what you want to do is kind of blend the back of the bead first. Nice. So I just applied my second bead at the tip, so now I'm kind of just pushing it around, making sure that I cover the entire free edge of the nail tip, making sure that the acrylic gets everywhere. So I just sort of push it up a bit. Notice the angle that I'm also using my brush at, and it's let's say like a 45-degree angle. It's not completely lying down, but it is at an angle, not a 90-degree angle where I'm jabbing the product with the brush. So you want to make sure that your acrylic liquid gets all the way through your brush. My cuticle bead. You see, as I press down, it kind of moves. And now I kind of wedge the tip of my brush in between my cuticle and the product, so that I get that nice tapered look from the cuticle. And now I just blend that bead into the rest of the acrylic. I like to take the tip of my brush and just clean around the cuticle just to make sure, because if any product gets into the cuticle and floods the cuticle, it can also cause lifting, and it also interferes with the overall look of the nails afterwards. And when you get a nice smooth application, you don't have much filing to do. Filing does take up a lot of time. See, the thickness of the nail. It should be around the thickness of like a credit card. But your apex, which is just where you apply your first bead, so right there you can see that little dip. I'm gonna apply a smaller bead there just to build a little bit of an apex, but you will also see that when I put more acrylic there, it smooths it out. It doesn't make it bulky. Out of frame again, but it's okay. So I just kind of pat it there into place, so you see it's not bulky. It just it's nice and smooth. So here I apply my first bead. I just clean up the sides, you know, make sure that the acrylic isn't running off of the nail. And this first bead is going to be building an apex, which is the strength of your nails, because that's the first part of the nail that actually tends to break. You know, it's the weakest point. So here I'm just patting it into place, making sure that everything is all smooth and that I have acrylic from sidewall to sidewall. So now I just blend it in, so that when I add my second bead of acrylic, I can also get a nice smooth application. Okay, so I just flip my finger around a bit just so that I can be at a comfortable angle to apply this bead. And I just flip it back. Now I'm just neatening up the sides a bit. And every time I pass, I'm bringing down the acrylic a little closer to the tip. So it's sort of like a downward and backward movement, but not too much. It's just light pats, and also I'm not moving the acrylic around too much. Just neatening up the sides. And when your brush gets a little dry, you just want to resaturate it again, and it kind of softens the acrylic back where it's a bit movable and you can maneuver it a little better. Because if the acrylic gets dried, then you won't be able to move it around. Here I apply my third bead close to the cuticle, not on the cuticle. While I am patting this into place, I'm also kind of pushing it towards the cuticle, just a little, just so that you get that coverage. And here I'm just blending that bead into the rest of the nail. And I'm using a small brush here, and here you will see where you know, using a small brush you can keep picking up as much acrylic as you want to fix any little mistakes that you make, or anywhere that doesn't get acrylic. You can always fix it with a small brush, you know. Whereas with a bigger brush, you tend to pick up a lot more liquid, and it soaks up more powder. It picks up more powder, so you get a bigger bead, and with a bigger bead you get more coverage. So that's why I'm using this small brush. So with beginners, they don't have that big monster bead to try to maneuver. Acrylic dries really quickly, so it's good that you start off just doing it little by little. So I put my second bead here, and I just clean off the sides. I neaten up the tip, the front of the nail. So every time you wet your brush, you are sort of liquefying your acrylic a little more so that you can maneuver it a bit more. So as I apply this third bead, you'd notice that the bead really wasn't big enough to cover the entire area right there. And I'm gonna have to go back there with a little more acrylic, just smaller beads, just to build up the spaces that I wasn't able to cover with this bead. Okay, so I just smooth it out a little bit so that I don't have that I don't end up with like a ridge there, so you just keep blending every bead into the last. So you see right at the side there, I need to put a little more acrylic, closer to the cuticle. So I just went in with a smaller bead, and I just blend it in. Clean up the sides. Just patting it into place there. So you can see there where there's a little bit of acrylic missing. I'm also going to get a small bead and notice the angle that I'm holding the brush at. It was just easier for me to get that acrylic in there holding the brush at that angle. So I'm just going to pat it into place so that that acrylic just settles into that dip. I clean off my edges, making sure not to flood the cuticle. It's really important to not flood the cuticle. And now I'm just adding a smaller bead there just to blend everything together. So I'm just gonna do that to the other side. And there you have it, nice, smooth, thin, full set. So like, share, subscribe for the filing video.